Hello, welcome, bienvenue, willkommen to the European Soccer Show. Tess is with you again another week, and another week with Leo. Bonsoir, Leo, ça va?
Bonsoir Daniel, how are you?
Oh, I'm having a heck of a day, as I mentioned before, but I'll give you the details because it's that kind of day that it's be petty to give it. Also, you probably realise that it's actually not so bad a day, and now I feel bad about that. But everyone else, how are you? How are you doing? Good. Well, now we've got
I'm
that.
great. I'm
I
great
mean,
too.
everyone else out there.
Champions League night, so everything is good for me.
Yes, very exciting, very exciting. But of course, we're not here to talk about that kind of European football. We're talking about European League football, not the Champions League. It's confusing. I mean, to be fair, we've called it the Champions League for a while, and that's when before it was a league, and it didn't really involve the champions. So still, right. Shall we kick off today and go over to the Premier League? So strap in, everybody, because this is one of the dullest days in Premier League recent history. Only 16 goals scored across 10 games in the Premier League. But I'll tell you what, some of the goals were very interesting and very important. Speaking of which, we started off the weekend with the Manchester Derby. Manchester United 2, Manchester City 0. Genuinely, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, Manchester United were excellent. Filthy in the mouth. Elsewhere, Chelsea had a fortuitous 2-0 victory against Brentford. Leeds United continued their astonishing return to form with a 1-0 victory over Fulham. Next up was Liverpool, somehow managing to draw 1-1 with Burnley, despite having a missed penalty and over 3 XG, but still 1-1 against Burnley, who scored with their only shot on target. Sunderland 2, Crystal Palace 1. We're going to talk a bit of the fallout there with manager Oliver Glasner. Oliver Glasner. Tottenham Hotspur 1, West Ham United 2. We finally know who the worst team is in the division currently. Yes, we'll talk about that a bit. And then from here on out, honestly, we forget that it existed. Nottingham Forest 0, Arsenal 0, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0, Newcastle United 0, Aston Villa 0, Everton 1. A surprising victory away for Everton, who currently, since David Moyes took over, have the joint best away record in the division. They've won as many away matches as Arsenal, I believe. And the final match last night was Brighton 1, Bournemouth 1. Right, so not many goals to discuss, but important events. So let's start with the first one. Manchester United 2, Manchester City 0. We should, first of all, let's give fat flowers to Manchester United because they were fantastic.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. They fully deserved the victory. And I think the 2-0 scoreline was even generous to Manchester City because, of course, in this game there have been 3 offside goals from
3 disallowed goals. I think they hit the post twice.
Yeah. And they played with heart and with intensity, with desire. What, in fact, a derby requires. And yeah, they played the perfect game against Manchester City. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, again, as I said before, like giving genuine credit to Manchester United, who counterattacked with real vigor. Committing that many people forward that quickly. You can see why so many people have been speaking about. Yes, this is the Manchester United DNA because. Yeah, actually, when you commit to a counterattack, I think you could probably say is very Manchester United. There should also be just a little point of reference, which is Diogo Dalot should be on the pitch, and that happened when it was still 0-0, I believe. So Dalot going in for a tackle with, I think it was Jerry Doku, and getting it all wrong and basically stamping on his knee, or like. I think what do you think saved him? Why do you think he didn't get a red card? Was it just because it wasn't a slide tackle? It was because he sort of planted his feet?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't understand why he had not been excluded because his foot was on the knee of Jeremy Doku, and no, I can't explain, and I don't have any explanation because even with the VAR, it's impossible to not allow the red card to Diallo, in my opinion. But
Yeah, it was slightly unusual, but like what a theme that has happened. So for those who missed it, midweek we had the two with the first legs of the League Cup semi-final: Newcastle United 0, Manchester City 2, Chelsea 2, Arsenal 3. But in the Newcastle Manchester City game, Manchester City had a goal disallowed, and the VAR review for an offside took over 6 minutes. And since then, it does feel like the VAR has been slightly rushed, because then the next night the exact same situation happened again, but the decision only took 30 seconds. And no one complains, no anything about that. But also this weekend has seen quite a few VAR decisions where actually they've tried. It seems like they've been trying to be very quick, but have also reached the wrong decision.
Yeah, but just to finish with this game, I think we should note that Donnarumma was City's best player without any question. But we can also say that even if he is or is, yeah, I think he's the best goalkeeper in the world right now. He can't perform miracles on his own, and he was the only player to play a derby for City this weekend.
Actually, before we move off, I just thought the last thing I'd bring up was Manchester City's the lineup, because with the arrival of Antoine Semenyo, people are very excited over the fact that he's on one wing, Jerry Doku on the other, two very attacking wingers, can cut inside, can stay outside, very, very dribbly boys, very, very exciting. But then, of course, in the midfield, you've got Phil Foden and Bernardo Silva, neither of who, they're the centre midfielders in this lineup. So it's very, very top heavy. But I would also like to point out with centre backs, the centre back partnership was Kushunov and Elaine. If you haven't heard of Elaine, that's because nobody has. It's a youth player that's come through.
He was on loan to Watford, if I'm not wrong, and being called back.
And he was substituted at halftime for O'Reilly, actually. So so Manchester City, from a defensive point of view, really didn't have much on the pitch. Some of it on force, some of it through tactical choice. But big credit to Manchester United, who jumped all the way up to 5th with that result. In fact, it's been a very unusual situation in the Premier League, because none of the top 5 won, and yet none of the bottom 5 lost. Very unusual situation. So we've gotten to the top. The weekend that Manchester City dropped points, Aston Villa had the opportunity to go second. They lost at home, and Arsenal could only manage a draw against Nottingham Forest. So despite that, Arsenal still gained another point. So they're now 7 points clear. Who are you least out of those the 3 title challenges? Who are you most disappointed by? Arsenal, City, or Aston Villa? Because it seemed like all 3 of them had a very off weekend.
Yeah. To be honest, when I saw the game between Manchester United and Manchester City, I texted you and I said that it could be the weekend for Arsenal to secure their title, because if they had win against Forest, they could have been 9 points clear to Manchester City and Aston Villa, which is exceptional at this stage of the season with only 16 games to go. So it was a big opportunity, given the fact, as you reminded, that Manchester City and Aston Villa have lost. So it's not a bad result for Arsenal, because they gain a point. But in a sense, we could also say that they have lost 2 points in the title race, even if they are now 7 points clear to their opponents. So it's a shame, but the fact that City and Villa have lost is a good news for them. And talking about Villa, because of course it's a bad result to lose to Everton at home. They have suffered a huge loss with Boubacar Kamara, who could miss the rest of the season following Emery's statement at a press conference. So I think I didn't see Villa won the title, but without Boubacar Kamara, and given his importance in Aston Villa's side, I think it's even more hard for them to compete with Arsenal.
Yeah, pretty great. And of course, let's not forget about the fact they've just the Doniel Marlin has just been sent on loan to Rome.
Yeah,
To Roma. So they're down another player. It's incredible what Aston Villa and Unai Emery are achieving with their being slightly like hands behind their back regards to transfer activity. But yeah, so another one out the door. So yeah, probably one of those games where, and also spoiler alert, he scored on his Roma debut. So one of those players where possibly him staying could have been a real help. Actually, you know what? So I'm gonna move things along because now, looking at the bottom of the table, with Leeds United's new solidity, Nottingham Forest won last weekend and obviously picked up a point against Arsenal. Burnley have been doing Burnley things. Even Wolverhampton are now unbeaten in 5 matches in all competition, I believe. So really, we've been waiting for West Ham to see what they're made of, and would they just be sucked down to the Championship? Alas, no. Dr. Tottenham, Dr. Spurs at your service. Yes, fixing any medically ill football club and giving them an easy victory. So Tottenham Hotspur 1, West Ham United 2. I had to double check the XG on this because it felt like for a long period of the time, especially in the second half, Tottenham were dominant. They were creating chance after chance after chance, and you were thinking, okay, maybe it's just unfortunate. But the XG was actually heavily in favour of West Ham. Was this a case of West Ham finally putting a good performance, or is it the case of genuinely Spurs are this bad?
I think it's both options because Spurs are bad. They are currently 14th in the league. They have just won one of the last 8 games in Premier League. So it's and last season, even if they won the Europa League, they were 17th at the 16th at the end of the season. So it's not new that Tottenham are bad, and to be honest, I find it hard to see how Thomas Frank will survive this period, even if he wins today or tomorrow in the Champions League. I think the game against Burnley next weekend will be the decider for the rest of his Tottenham career, because if he lost to Burnley or even draw, I do think his direction will sack him.
Yeah, it's hard to see, isn't it? Because it'd be one thing if there were the performances. It'd be one thing if you could see the tactical idea. It'd be one thing that there just doesn't seem to be. And I'm a huge fan of Thomas Frank, and felt like he absolutely deserved this opportunity. But it just feels strange. But then, as you point out, the fact that they finished where they did last season suggests that this is not just the coach. This is not just the tactical setup. There is something. Yeah, there's something misaligned here. And of course the sporting director leaving as well to go to Fiorentina.
Yeah, and they have tried to name coach. If we talk about Thomas Frank, but Postecoglou also had an idea of how he wanted his team to play, and he never really managed to implement his ideas to Tottenham. So I think the problem is not only what the coach wants with his team, but the whole club and everything which is done in this club.
Yeah, well, and also before we move on from the Premier League, we should probably mention Crystal Palace. So, talk about managers that you're surprised are still in the job. Oliver Glasner, after the defeat at Sunderland, in interviews with the press afterwards, was describing feeling abandoned by those higher up in the club. Now, considering we've seen Maresca, we've seen Amorim criticize the directors and the people above them, and they've immediately been fired from their position, everyone's kind of assumed that Glasner would inevitably be sacked because you can't criticize your employers like that. And yet, there is a real there's a real want to actually make peace until the end of the season, because obviously Glasner's contract's out anyway. Do you think it's a healthy situation, Glasner staying? Because obviously the players adore him. The fans turned on him slightly at the weekend, but obviously he's helped deliver their first ever major trophy and will always be now a Crystal Palace legend. And that word is thrown around a lot, but if you win the first ever trophy for your club, that's going to happen. Do you think it's actually a healthy thing for him to stay? Because it seems like there's something with recent results, with the mood around the place, it does feel like something needs to change. And perhaps with only 6 months left on a contract, this might be an opportunity to okay, bit of fresh air. But they've decided to keep him on. So do you think that's the right choice? Do you think that's a healthy choice? Do you think that what do you think the benefit would be from this?
Yeah, despite the FA Cup trophy last season, which is of course historical for Crystal Palace, it looks like it's the end of the road for Oliver Glasner, saying something like, "I'm feeling abandoned by my management," is something strong to say publicly. He has done some poor results with Crystal Palace lately, with a run of 10 games without a win, eliminations in FA Cup and EFL Cup. He will also have to deal with the loss of Mark Gay, transferred to Manchester City, so it's a big point. So I don't think it's healthy, both for him and for the club to stay together. Maybe Crystal Palace need to change and start a new chapter of their history.
Well, what a wonderful ride it's been. And obviously they're still in the Conference League. So, fingers crossed they can still go deep into that competition and maybe deliver another historic moment. Right, we're going to move on then. So thank you very much to the Premier League with your juicy 16 goals. Speaking of goals, we're going to go over to Italy and Serie A. Now, the reason there are goals is not because there's some glut, it's because there are some midweek matches as well. So in midweek, on Wednesday, I said goals, there really aren't. Wednesday, the stutter continues for Napoli, drew 0-0 at home to Parma. Inter managed to squeeze a 1-0 victory at home to Lecce, a goal from Esposito. And then on Thursday, Hellas Verona 2, Bologna 3. Bologna came from a goal down to win that. Fantastic game there. And a really entertaining match as well at Como. Como 1, AC Milan 3. AC Milan coming from a goal down to win there with a penalty from Nkunku and a couple from Rabiot. And then to the weekend. On Friday, Pisa managed to actually get a point. They're getting a few of those now at the minute. Pisa 1, Atalanta 1. They managed to stop the juggernaut of Atalanta. On Saturday, Udinese lost 1-0 at home to Inter. Only goal coming from Lautaro Martinez. If you're a fan of 1-0s, you're going to enjoy this next bit. Napoli 1, Sassuolo 0. Only goal coming from Lobotka. Cagliari 1, Juventus 0. That's right, Juventus lost away to Cagliari. Cagliari faced with relegation. No, Juventus are the ones they're losing. Although we should point out, we'll delve into it later. Then on Sunday, are you a fan of clean sheets? I'm glad, because Parma 0, Genoa 0. 2 0-0s for Parma this week. Lucky dogs. And then Bologna and Fiorentina spoiled it by having some goals. So Bologna 1, Fiorentina 2. Brilliant result for Fiorentina on the night that their owner passed, the night after their owner passed away, all suddenly. Torino 0, Roma 2. A goal from on the debut for Marlon and Dybala. AC Milan 1, Lecce 0. Nicholas Füllkrug getting his first goal for the club from his loan from West Ham United. And then last night, Cremonese 0, Hellas Verona 0, and Lazio 0, Como 3. A couple of goals there for Nico Paz, as well as an assist. Excellent performance there from Como. So probably we should look at the more disappointing results. So just when Juventus looked like they were back in the title race, they went and lost at Cagliari. But we should have a little caveat here, which is, of course, Juventus, as has been reported, is one of the best performances of the season. They had 21 shots to Cagliari's 3. They only had 5 on target, but then Cagliari only had 1, the one that went in. Juventus also has 78% possession. All that was missing was it to go in the goal.
Yeah, reading I've read the Italian press earlier today, and they say what we also said during the past weeks, that the problem of Juventus is their strikers' performance, which are the most criticized thing at Juventus right now, because every goal scored by Jonathan David, even if he scored some few goals assisted in the past weeks, and Luis Openda, it's too poor for a team like Juve, and there is a talk of a potential attempt to sign Jean-Philippe Mateta from Crystal Palace now, so they are likely to. They are going to look for a striker that can definitively score goals, because it's impossible for them to compete for the title with this lack of quality in not lack of quality, because I do think Openda and David are players with quality, but of they are experiencing some struggles to score and to adapt to Serie A, so they are desperately need someone that can score goals if they want to reach the Champions League spot.
It's also interesting that they brought in two strikers with fairly similar profiles.
Yeah.
Obviously from different leagues, but yeah, and it's interesting that they're both suffering from this first season syndrome. Perhaps it's a tactical thing instead. Inter 2-1-0 victories at home to Lecce, away to Udinese. They're just getting it done, aren't they? They don't care how. It's just like that is just keep it moving on. Just keep the 3 points coming.
Yeah.
Although, sorry to say, but also I should say Lautaro Martinez's goal against Udinese, it was lovely outside of the foot finish. Yeah, from the edge.
This weekend there were no easy games for the top teams. If you take a look at the results, because Inter have only won by a goal, Napoli also, Milan also, Roma have scored twice, but the important, because there are now 4 teams competing for the title, even if Roma are 7 points down to Inter, it's just to win these games, no matter how convincing you are, because your opponents, they score points and you need to follow. So yeah, there were no easy games, but Inter now they are 3 points clear Milan, who, if we can recall it, will not play European football this season. So it will maybe help for the end of the season, for the physical and mental on physical and mental aspects.
I've just looked at the table. I just realized Roma have not drawn a match this season. That's a strange.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yes. Speaking of Roma, actually, they've had a decent week. They actually lost midweek at home to Torino in the cup, and then they just beat Torino in the league. So I feel like they probably would have felt like that was the right way around.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Roma they have recruited a player from Olympique de Marseille, Robinho Vaz, for 25 million euros, which is, in my opinion, a big bet, because Robinho Vaz is a very young player, and 25 million for a player like that is a bet. But they finally got a striker, because they needed
Donyell Malen. Yes, of course, yeah. Donyell Malen. Again, scoring on his debut before Dybala extended the lead against Torino. Absolutely. So looking down at the bottom, let's talk about Fiorentina, because obviously Fiorentina, the news that their owner Rocco, I think people affectionately call him as, passed away in the night before, and obviously he's a huge fan. He's not. I think it was reported he hadn't been back to Florence for the 4 years or 5 years, something like that. I think before COVID, due to health issues. Although now we know there are health issues. But it's invested in the club, passionate about the club, a real Fiorentina boy through and through. So it would have meant the world to, well, I suppose the fans, everybody involved with the club, that a victory on that night in particular occurred.
Yeah, and with this important win, 2 things to note. it's that they confirm their progress in recent week because they haven't lost for 4 games in a row in Serie A, and they are no longer in the relegation zone because of
yes, they
Lecce's
climbed above
playoffs.
Lecce. Yes.
Yeah, so it's a good thing, and even though the season is still long because it remains 17 games in Serie A. I have a feeling that we already know the names of the 3 teams that will be relegated at the end of the season.
You think it's going to stay the same now?
Yeah, I think.
Interesting.
Fiorentina, they will. I think even Fiorentina will finish 12 or 13 in the league.
Well, it is starting to get quite congested.
Yeah.
So if you look from, say, Lecce in 18th place, only 6 points ahead of them is Sassuolo in 11th. So that is basically the entire bottom half still within touching distance.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really people could be sucked in. Well, I mean, they absolutely are. I mean, Torino have lost 4 of their last 5 matches. They're being sucked back into trouble, although they did win the other match. Sassuolo have only got 2 points from the last 18 available. But here's the thing. So I was going to say, Fiorentina, what's been so remarkable about that turnaround is the fact that it doesn't seem to be happening anywhere outside of the top 7. They have the best form, which kind of sounds right, though, because we kind of went into the season thinking they had about the 7th or 8th best squad. So it just feels like they're returning to the mean, right? They're returning to normality.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, and then you look around teams around them and above them. So yeah, Sassuolo only 2 points from the last 18. Cremonese only 3. Parma have actually really recovered. Torino we've already spoken about. Genoa 1 victory. They're actually undefeated in the last 4, but it's only 1 victory in the last 7, I think it is. And then yeah, as you say, in the relegation zone, Lecce have lost 5 of the last 6. Draw being the other one. Pisa have picked up 4 draws in the last 6 games, but again, sort of that's a draw, not a victory. Hellas Verona lost 4 of the last 6. So yes, it's interesting that actually the bottom 3 are genuinely have the worst form as well. So it does feel like it's starting to shift slightly. Should we park Serie A there then? Let's park it there. Arrivederci. And what do we have next? I think we've got, is it La Liga next? La Liga.
Bundesliga.
Okay, Bundesliga. Oh, excellent.
As you want. As you preferred.
Dankeschön. Right. Well, just as well, because we got a lot of the Bundesliga. They had a midweek as well. And heads up, so the Hamburg by Leverkusen match, I believe, was postponed because I can't find the result anywhere, so I'm assuming it's postponed. On Tuesday, another fantastic game between Frankfurt involving Stuttgart or involving Frankfurt. Stuttgart 3, Frankfurt 2. Nate getting the winning goal with just 2 minutes left. Borussia Dortmund 3, Werder Bremen 0. Mainz finally got a victory after a long old while. 2-1 at home against Heidenheim. Then on Wednesday, Wolfsburg beat St. Pauli 2-1. Really, again, sort of setting the relegation tone there with St. Pauli there. Hoffenheim, I messaged you at the time. Watch out for Hoffenheim. The Hoff is on the move. 5-1 against Borussia Mönchengladbach. A hat-trick for Kramaric in that game, with 2 coming in injury time in the first half. And then Köln won by Munich 3. RB Leipzig returned with a 2-0 victory at home against Freiburg, both goals coming in the second half. And then on Thursday, Augsburg drew 1-1 with Union Berlin. So before we go into this weekend's fixtures, have a quick word on this. So first of all, Bayern came from a goal down to defeat Köln. Goals from Gnabry, Min-jae and Karl. Bayern have we're running out of superlatives for Bayern, haven't we? Because even though they went a goal behind, there's an inevitability about this now. There's so much momentum.
Yeah, and there have been, we will talk about this sooner, but they have been trailing a 1-goal difference twice this week, and they have scored in both games. But yeah, Bayern are inevitable. Sorry, their squad depth is impressive. Even more, their attacking squad. They are just too good for this championship. And all due respect to every other teams, but I can't see any team compete with them for.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's even a question. They're 11 points clear. They have scored 71 goals in 18 matches. Generally, if one more goal, that would be an average of 4 a match.
Yeah, And they have a goal difference of 57.
That goal difference is higher than more than anybody's actually scored, let alone a goal difference. Yeah, astonishing. Yeah. But also, I did mention Hoffenheim, and I want you to keep that in mind, because Hoffenheim have been in fantastic form. They've sort of started the season a bit slowly, but since then they've won. At the time, that was their 4th victory in 5. Getting a bit of momentum, just as teams like Leipzig and Bayer Leverkusen were stuttering. So let's bring that to this weekend's results, where Hoffenheim won, Bayer Leverkusen 0. This felt like quite a moment. This felt like almost like not the changing of the guard as such, but Bayer Leverkusen feels like that's their 4th defeat in 6. It feels like they really have lost. Talk about momentum. They've lost all momentum. They need to sort of regain it. And yet Hoffenheim have been steamrolling through and have moved up to 3rd place with that result.
Yeah, that's impressive. No, I don't think anyone could have expected that from Hoffenheim. They continue their exceptional season. And we have to note that they also have a game in hand compared to, for example, Stuttgart or Frankfurt in the Champions League spot race.
Yes, of course.
Which can count because if they are to win it, they would be 3 points up to Stuttgart and 6 points up to Frankfurt, which is not.
Currently they look among the favourites for Champions League football, which we wouldn't have been saying about 7-8 weeks ago. Yeah, incredible turnaround.
Yeah, and they have only 1 defeat since November, the beginning of November, and the 3rd best attack in the league and the 3rd best defense. So it's logical to find them 3rd in the league when you know that.
Yeah. Look at you doing Moneyball.
Yeah.
Right, let's look at the other results from the weekend. So Werder Bremen 3, Frankfurt 3. Another. That's 9 goals conceded by Frankfurt in the 3 matches since the Winterpause. Frankfurt scored in the 1st minute and the 4th minute stoppage time to snatch a draw against Werder Bremen. On Saturday, Borussia Dortmund threw away a 2-goal lead against St. Pauli. That's right, bottom of the table in St. Pauli. But got a bit lucky. They scored. They had Emre Can score a winning penalty in the 5th minute stoppage time. Borussia Dortmund 3, St. Pauli 2. Possibly the strangest 0-0 I've heard of. Hamburg 0. Borussia Mönchengladbach 0. Although Hamburg had 25 shots, they had 12 on target. Borussia Mönchengladbach didn't have a single one on target, and yet 0-0. What a goalkeeper performance. Köln recovered from the defeat against Bayern to beat Mainz 2-1, coming from a goal down for that. Wolfsburg 1, Heidenheim 1. Then the big game, which we will come back to in a moment. RB Leipzig 1, Bayern Munich 5. Again, to reiterate, Bayern were behind in this match. Then on the Sunday, Stuttgart 1, Union Berlin 1, and Augsburg 2, Freiburg 2. So yeah, RB Leipzig took the lead through Romelu, and yet Bayern through goals. Gnabry, Kane, Jonathan Tah, Pavlovic, Elise. Astonishing performance, but we should highlight Michael Elise's performance was unworldly.
Yeah, as you mentioned, they have once again scored a lot of goals, 5. But the real, let's say, highlight of this game was Olise's coming in the 16th minute. Just in like 13 minutes, he scored and assisted 3 times, which is unbelievable. And I went to his transfer market page preparing this show, and I didn't realize that he had scored 13 goals and assisted 20 times on 28 games this season, which is unbelievable for him. I don't have any more words. That's just impressive.
I think the sound you made actually sort of summed it up quite nicely. Dortmund doing Dortmund things. So they've had a strange old time since the return of the league. Though they, I mean, to be fair, they've I mean, a long period of undefeated as well, and more victories, but not convincing. So, the 3-0 victory against Werder Bremen, well done. But then throwing away a 2-goal lead against bottom of the table St. Pauli, that is concerning. Although, again, they just about pulled it off.
Yeah, we tend to sometimes make fun of Dortmund for dropping points at the end of games, being original losers for everything in the league. But we have to be, if we are honest, in recent weeks, it's been the opposite, because they have won in the dying minutes this weekend. They had against Frankfurt, they had equalized in the additional time. Against Gladbach before Christmas, they have scored in the dying minutes too. So these are valuable points. If you take the example of Leipzig, who were head-to-head with Dortmund a few weeks ago, they didn't. They lose so much point in this kind of game. So credit to Dortmund to being able to win this once.
And also, absolutely. Looking at so RB Leipzig. Obviously, there's a bit of a freak result because it's Bayern.
Yeah.
But that is their third defeat in 4. It does feel like they're slipping a bit. It feels like Bayer Leverkusen, they are very much in the middle of a slip, like a full-on skid. And yet RB Leipzig, it feels like they could be experiencing something similar.
Yeah, especially since they haven't European football in midweek, which is difficult for I think it's difficult for the supporters to accept that their team is going in this kind of form, because 2 or 3 weeks ago they were second or third in the league, and now they are fifth. Even if they have a game in hand too, like Hoffenheim, they will need to win and to gain points if they want to find back the way to Champions League next season.
We should probably point out as well that after the 3-3 draw with Bremen, Frankfurt dismissed their manager, which is in some ways a bit confusing because they are still 7th, and they are still they're only 5 points behind potential Champions League qualification. But they also have the worst defense in the league. I mean, obviously, in the early start of the season, there was this ongoing joke about just how many goals they were conceding. They were still winning in matches every now and again, but it was astonishing. And then it felt like they sort of got a grip on it. But since the restart, they slipped into old habits. Right decision for you? Do you think too many warning signs, too little control?
Which is fun with Frankfurt is that they are the worst defense in the league, but they are also the second best attack with 38 goals. So when you watch a Frankfurt game, you're practically assured of a real Bundesliga
well, you get your money's worth, absolutely.
Yeah, of course. So it's difficult in that sense to say how their second part of the season will look like, because they can concede and score goals in every game. So let's see. It will be fun.
Also, before we move on, just a great week for Augsburg at the bottom, because 2 draws have taken them sneaking away from the relegation zone. And they are, with goal difference, they are now a whole victory clear. But Heidenheim are out of the relegation zone. They're in the playoff spot, but they've managed to climb above Mainz as well. So Pauli do have a game in hand, but obviously they're bottom, and who knows how good a game in hand is at that stage. Right. Dankeschön to the Bundesliga. Where are we going next, Leo?
La Liga.
La Liga, yes, please.
En España, señor.
Not a chance. Can barely speak English. Right. Okay. Yes. Big weekend in Spain. Obviously, there's the fallout from last weekend when Xabi Alonso was fired. So before we actually go on to La Liga, we're going to look at the Cup, the Spanish Cup, where in midweek, Real Madrid went to Albacete and lost 3-2. That's right. Lost 3-2 to lower league Albacete. Astonishing result, wasn't it? We should also mention that immediately after it was announced that Vinicius Jr. had been on the receiving end of some horrible, more horrible racist abuse. And Albacete, the club, stood by him and apologized and have committed to finding the people responsible, which has, of course, taken the gloss of it, the shine off slightly from the victory. But nevertheless, the performance was fantastic. And the Real Madrid one was bemusing. It was confusing. We were messaging each other at the time saying, what?
Yeah, first, full support to Vinicius Jr. because it's unacceptable to have this kind of behavior in a stadium or in life in general. So full support to him. But yeah, what a strange result for Real Madrid. But if you take a look at the other results, they're not the only team to have struggled in Copa del Rey. For example, the Athletic Club, they only won 4-3 against Cultural Leonesa, which is a good result for them, but a harsh victory. Atletico Madrid have only won 1-0 to Deportivo La Coruña.
But of course, the big difference is the big lads, the big boys, did enough to get through, and yet Real Madrid, the biggest of all the boys,
they didn't. Yeah. And I've read something about an Albacete player. I don't remember who, but he cancelled his holidays to be able to play this Real Madrid game.
Way. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's a good story.
Well, I'm glad they won. Now you can go back on holiday with the win bonus.
And they will play against Barcelona in the round of in the quarterfinals. So
fantastic. Why not knock them both out? Fantastic. Right. So La Liga on Friday, a real surprising result. Espanyol, high-flying Espanyol, lost at home against Girona 2-0. Unusual situation where Vanats, the striker Vanats, scored a penalty in the 3rd minute of stoppage time in the first half, and the 3rd minute of stoppage time in the second half. Another penalty. Yeah. On Saturday, Real Madrid put that loss in the cup aside to win 2-0 against Levante, relegation threat Levante. Real slog, unconvincing 2-0 victory. Goals from Mbappe from the penalty spot and Raul Asensio. Mallorca, again, sort of threatened by relegation, pulled off a fantastic victory against Athletic Club, 3-2. A hat-trick there for Murici. Also a couple of red cards for Athletic Club, who seemed to completely lose their heads. Osasuna, another relegation battle, 6-pointer. Osasuna won 3-2 against Oviedo. Came from behind to win that one. Real Betis 2, Villarreal 0. Betis trying to refine some form. Villarreal, just a small stumble, although they did have a man sent off with about 50 minutes to spare. And on Sunday, the biggest news at all, perhaps, Valencia won a match. They won at Getafe 1-0. Jose Gaya having the only goals there. Atletico beat Alaves 1-0. Surloff getting the only goal. Celta Vigo's form continues, a 3-0 victory against Rayo Vallecano. Real Sociedad, the big one of the weekend. Real Sociedad 2, Barcelona 1. An astonishing result for Real Sociedad. And Elche 2, Sevilla 2 on Monday. So let's start with Real Sociedad Barcelona, because much like the Juventus one I said earlier, Barcelona were actually fantastic. I believe they hit the woodwork 5 times. They had a couple of goals disallowed, but they did lose 2-1. So nothing to be worried about, but it was a strange performance regardless.
Yeah, sometimes you have an off day, and I think it was the case for Barcelona. As you mentioned, they have hit the posts 5 times. There were controversial refereeing decisions. They were criticized after the game, especially by Frenkie de Jong. But there were also defensive mistakes, and this is what caused Barcelona troubles this season compared to last seasons. The defensive system is in difficulties. It is in difficulty. So yeah, it's almost logical for them to have lost some points and games this season. But if we are being honest, this game against Real Sociedad, if they were to play it 10 times, they would have win it 9. So great
Possibly
result
10, quite frankly.
yeah, great result from Real Sociedad, of course. But
yeah, absolutely. And actually puts them weirdly in contention for the final European spot. That's how close it is. And actually, speaking about close, Barcelona now only 1 point ahead of Real Madrid. Again, it comes back to the thought of, why did Real Madrid fire Xabi Alonso? Because, of course, there was a couple of players being unhappy, but they're 1 point behind. They're now out. I mean, they're out of the cup. They lost after they fired Xabi Alonso, but they are this close to Barcelona. So it doesn't feel like there's anything. There's not been a huge mistake yet. There's not been an enormous underperformance. They're still competing for everything. Well, not the cup now, but still.
Yeah.
It seems a strange one.
But I think in a club like Real Madrid, especially since the players seem to have more power than the coach, it's difficult when the coach is not in has his players turning him their back to him. Yeah, difficult situation for him.
Well, as Espanyol start to again having a tremendous season, we should probably look at Celta Vigo, only 2 points behind Espanyol in 5th position, potentially a Champions League spot. Celta Vigo currently 7th, and it's an incredible run of form. They've now won 5 of their last 6. They're undefeated in 8, is it? Brilliant turn. We should also highlight. I'm not sure if you were, but the
Real Betis.
Yeah. There was a story about him getting homophobic abuse last week, because he just one of those players that likes wearing sort of nail polish. And so the club encouraged fans to bring wearing nail polish, which is a lovely, lovely thing to think about. But yes, Celta Vigo genuinely look like they could be in Europe, because if you go from there are these big gaps appearing now. So obviously from Atletico in 4th and Espanyol in 5th, there's now 7 points. So perhaps Espanyol a step too far to get towards the top 4, but Espanyol, Real Betis, Celta Vigo, those 3 are only separated by 2 points. But the big thing is, because there's a 7-point gap above them and an 8-point gap below them, those 3 really could be fighting for a Champions League spot. So it could be either Espanyol, Betis, or Celta Vigo. And 2 of those 3 you would never have guessed at the start of the season.
No, and I don't know the rule about if Barcelona were to win the Copa del Rey, for example. Does the 7th place in the table being a spot for a European Cup? Because if it was to be the case, all 3 should be in Europe next season.
Well, I'm fairly certain cup winners only get a guaranteed Europa League place. So I believe it would be. So it's more to do with the coefficiency in. So the 2 countries with the highest coefficient, the teams that get furthest in the competitions. Last season it was England and Spain, I think.
Spain.
So it could be, if it's again, then yes, you'd have another one. So Europa League would go 1 down, and then the Conference League would go 1 down. So so feasibly, all of them could be in Europe, and it feels like they deserve to be, because all of them are having a really good season, particularly Celta Vigo and Espanyol.
But even Real Betis, we have to talk about what they did this weekend by beating Villarreal, because firstly, this defeat puts Villarreal out of the title race for good, although it was hard to imagine them catching up with Barcelona and Real Madrid, to be honest. But
I would point out that their game in hands against Levante, who are currently 19, and if they win that, they are only 5 points behind Barcelona. So perhaps not entirely out, but also never really close enough.
Yeah. But it was a great performance for Real Betis, because they played with many injured players, and they produced one of the best performances of the season. So great display from them.
I would also point out, let's look down further the table before we move on. Girona now have 4 wins of the last 5 matches. Half of the points they've gained this season have been in the last 5 matches. They're up to 11th now. But the big movers, the big shakers, Valencia up to 17th, out of the relegation zone with that victory. at Getafe. Out of the bottom half, so Girona have got a real bit of momentum. Osasuna have got 3 victories in the last 6 matches. Girona 4, but everybody else from 13th place downwards, no one has more than a single victory in the last 6 games. So it feels like any of them could go down simply because they aren't developing enough of that momentum we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I'm not as certain. Yeah, I'm not as certain as I am for Serie A, because even if the gap between Real Oviedo and 17th place Valencia is about 7 points, which is big. As you said, a lot of teams seems to struggle. So difficult, but valuable win for Valencia. They had not won a game away for the last 8 months, so it's incredible for them to have win it.
Yeah.
I think it's also difficult. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say we should probably point out as well. Elche in 8th place are only 5 points above the relegation zone.
So it's very difficult to predict who will be relegated. Even if Levante and Real Oviedo, of course, they should move on quickly if they want to have chances to stay up.
Right, we should probably bounce off to Ligue 1 before ending the roundup. So, Ligue 1. So we started with yet another underwhelming Monaco performance, losing at home against promoted Lorient 3-1. Paris Saint-Germain defeated Lille 3-0 with that Dembele goal. We need to talk about that. On Saturday, Lens defeated Auxerre 1-0. Saïd scored that one. Toulouse beat Nice 5-1. That's right. Nice is still doing Nice things, and they are 1 place above the relegation zone now. Angers lost at home 5-2 against Marseille. Marseille finding their scoring boots this week, scoring 14 goals in 2 games. And on Sunday, Strasbourg defeated Metz 2-1. Nantes lost at home to Paris FC 2-1. Rennes and Le Havre played out a 1-1 draw. And Lyon defeated Brest 2-1. Del Castillo receiving a red card in just the 19th minute there for Brest. So let us start with Paris Saint-Germain and the Dembele goal.
Yeah, extraordinary goal. A Ballon d'Or goal.
I mean, almost certainly it's the Puskás award-winning goal already. It's January.
Yeah.
But would you mind describing it for the people joining us?
That's so difficult to describe. Firstly, it was.
Well, okay. Let's jump in then. Let's just talk about. So the manager described it as a PlayStation goal. So, which is kind of the best way to describe it. He had control on the edge of the area, didn't quite get it under control, and more players sort of dived in. It's only the space of 4 seconds. 2 or 3 players came back to try and block his shot. He sort of edged, and then managed to lob the goalkeeper from just 14 yards. I mean, essentially, people go on YouTube, find it. It is one of the best goals you'll see. It's ridiculous. But it's the sort of goal that just makes you feel alive, doesn't it? It makes you love the game again.
Yeah.
You're watching it again, that's why you're distracted. This is
No, sorry, I was answering something important. But PSG against Lille, they needed to get back on track because, as a reminder, they were eliminated from the French Cup by Paris FC last week. They were a little shaky at the start of the match, but Ousmane Dembélé, he apart from his exceptional goal, he delivered a Ballon d'Or performance to finally lead them to a comfortable victory and to stay on track with Lens, because Lens won again this weekend. So impressive performance from PSG.
Absolutely, and like you say, and Lens, those two very much being the front runners here. Marseille refining a bit of form again. I know they lost last before the break, but yeah. So they found their scoring boots again, which seems to be the thing they really enjoy.
Yeah.
They are better when they go forward, aren't they, Marseille?
Marseille, they played one of the best 40 first minutes I've seen this season in Liga. They scored 4. It was, to be honest, an exceptional performance. Even if they once again conceded goals. Angers, I've said it in the last weeks, they were one of the surprise of the first part of the season in Ligue 1. So it was an interesting performance from Marseille. They are now third in the league. They compete with Lyon, Lille, Rennes for the spots. So it was important for them to mark their performance.
An excellent week as well for Paris FC, as you said, knocking out Paris Saint-Germain.
Winning at Nantes in a relegation battle.
Excellent. So they've moved away from the relegation zone there. And Nice are 15th. They are 4 points ahead of Nantes, but still they are... they're bad. Speaking of bad, Monaco, they're the last things we'll talk about from the roundup. That is their 5th defeat in 6 matches. They are 9th, but also 8 points away from the European places. This feels like Monaco's season is about to completely peter out, isn't it?
Yeah, it already has to be honest, because they have registered their 4th defeat in a row. Sebastian Pocognoli, because as a reminder, they started the season with Adi Hutter. Then he was replaced by Pocognoli. It was promising debut with the draw against Tottenham in the Champions League. But now he has as many wins as he got defeats, with 7 wins and 7 defeats. The only thing that, in my opinion, gives him some credit is that his team is still in the Coupe de France and will certainly qualify in the Champions League playoffs. But they are really, really bad in the league.
Right, so that ends our league roundup. We wanted to leave time to talk about AFCON because, well, quite frankly, everybody's talking about the AFCON final. And I wanted Leo to have a little minute before he has to run off. So the semi-finals, Senegal defeated Egypt 1-0, Sadio Mane getting the only goal. Nigeria and Morocco played out a 0-0, and Morocco won on penalties. Then the third place playoff, 0-0. Nigeria won on penalties. And then the final. Or rather, specifically, the final... Well,
5 minutes.
20 minutes. Yeah.
20
goodness. Yeah. So for those of you, again, if those of you who aren't aware, let me paint the picture and then we'll have some questions. So the first minute of stoppage time, it's 0-0. First minute of stoppage time, Senegal have a corner. They do score. They put the ball in the net, but the referee has already blown for a foul about a second before then, thinking that a player had been pushed over. Everyone seems to be in agreement that it was incredibly soft decision, massively soft, but also because he blew the whistle before the ball went into the net, you can't then review on VAR. So strange choice. Then in the 6th minute of stoppage time, Morocco appeal for a penalty. Brahim Diaz feels he's been pulled back. Replay show that he really wasn't much. If it was again very, very soft.
Very soft.
But the referee went to the monitor and he awarded Morocco a penalty. And Senegal, in protest, left the field. So let's pause it there. So first of all, there has been murmurings, not throughout the entire tournament, but certainly the match against Nigeria, with the referee favouring the hosts, Morocco. And in this match, again, Morocco, the hosts, getting a couple of incredibly favourable decisions. We should point out that the only real mistake the referee made was the fact he disallowed the Senegal goal before it went in the net. That's like, so he couldn't use VAR, but he then completely lost control of the situation.
Yeah, the thing is that you can refuse the goal to Senegal after reviewing it with the VAR, but where his mistake is that he didn't feel the game. When you are an actor of the game, you need to be able to feel it and to disallow the goal after before it was even scored. It's the real problem in it. If Senegal had scored, and then he was called by the VAR to just to check if everything was good. Okay, then we could have accepted it, even if it was really soft, as you mentioned. But the fact that he whistled even before the goal is the big problem, and the fact that the foul on Brahim Diaz appeared only 90 seconds later, it was hard to
So yeah, Senegal's fury at having the goal
Yeah.
chalked off, followed by the Senegal's fury at such a soft penalty, and it is soft. Has to be said.
really.
So like Brahim Diaz is moving backwards, and the defender's hand is on sort of like the back of his neck, and then Brahim Diaz falls backwards. The thing is, it's not as if the player's like grabbed his shirt and pulled. His hand's just on like the back of his neck. It's not as if he grabbed or anything. It's just there. Yeah, I suppose, but again, that'd be the naivety of like, well, if you put your hand on a player, you are giving the referee a choice. But as we already saw, the referee was choosing a certain direction. But then what followed was a 16-minute delay, of which Senegal were, kicking up a fuss. They left the field, everyone apart from Sadio Mane. They left the field at the command of, at the order of the head coach. And it was Sadio Mane who managed to persuade them to come back on. There were all sorts of conspiracy theories going about, like how the hell they got back on the pitch. Did Morocco agree to miss the penalty? Spoiler alert, the penalty was taken in the 20-something, 23rd, 24th minute of stoppage time. And Brahim Diaz is about to take it, the top goal scorer of the tournament, about to win it for the host nation for the first time in 50 years, the last kick of the tournament. And he chooses a Panenka.
Yeah, I think it was an ego shot, to be honest. He just wanted his pick on Instagram, because I can't understand why he did that. It's unacceptable at this level. On the very, very last kick of the game, I can't explain what happened to him. But
also, we should explain. The Panenka was so bad. The goalkeeper, Senegalese goalkeeper Mendy, he actually sort of dived first of all, but because it was so badly hit, he could actually just stand up again and grab the ball. Yeah, I messaged you at the times. I mean, I was probably a bit. I did say I described it as a stupid penalty, which is probably a bit extreme. But I made the point that I can only think of two players who have ever done a Panenka in such a high stress, high pressure environment. And they were Zidane and Pirlo, like two players with perfect technique. Yeah, but then I also made the point that it's strange that Brahim Diaz was still given the penalty, because even though he was the designated penalty taker, this is a young player, although 24, I think, isn't it, his ages? But it's still, that's a long delay. That's a lot of pressure. That's a long wait. And I was a bit surprised that maybe the captain Hakimi didn't take over, just because in that situation, it was an unusual situation and the captain could have taken over.
Yeah, I can understand your point, but if you just go back in time, you'd remember that Hakimi missed his penalty on the last AFCON against South Africa, so maybe they didn't want to take
good point. He's not great at them.
Yeah.
I was thinking more about the leadership thing. But then, of course, extra time finally happened, which is funny. And an astonishing winning goal, an absolute rocket from just outside the edge of the area. A goal worthy of winning the tournament. But at the last word before you run off, Leo, the big thing about this, it was such a shame in a way, because it's a bad look for African football. This tournament, what we've all been waiting for the tournament to ignite, because it's been fairly predictable and fairly what we would describe as relatively mundane, because the favourites always win and so on and so on. But it has been just a regular tournament and no chaos, which actually is kind of the point. And yet this happened. It's not a great look.
No, I completely agree. And the fact that all these events occurred, the fact that it was a great match indeed before the 85th minute, because it was a lot of intensity, technical quality, skills, the two best teams in the tournament and in Africa. And we will not talk about it, and just about the penalty, the chaos in the stands and journalists and everything. It's a shame for African football.
Yeah. It is indeed. Right, we've actually come to the end of our recording, so we don't really have time to do the things we missed or the trivial trivia. So maybe another time. Maybe I'll save them for next week.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us, everybody.
Thank you,
again,
Daniel.
find the Dembele goal. Find it, watch
find
it.
it.
Also, do the same thing for the AFCON final, quite frankly. It's fascinating watching. Thank you so much for joining me again, Leo.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everyone, to have
Always a pleasure.
Watch the stream. Yeah.
Enjoy the return of the Champions League, and we'll be with you again next week for more of this European nonsense. But until then, goodbye from Tess, and have a great week.
Goodbye, everyone.